Hey guys, welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck analysis. This is another one of my decks that, honestly, I've had this deck for a while. I think I created it actually maybe back in 2010-ish. The focus of this deck actually is called a blue control deck, and it literally is a control deck because all the cards in this deck are either copying stuff or controlling the opponent's stuff. So when you talk about blue control, right, usually people mean like, oh, I use counter spells and you know, stuff like that to control the board. But no, this deck literally controls stuff. So that's why it's called the blue control, and it's a commander deck. So it's 100 cards with a commander, and I'll show you guys the commander actually as I go through it. But yeah, I've used this deck for fun because it really is pretty fun to use. Actually, any commander deck is pretty fun to use. They're singleton 100 card decks. But yeah, this one's especially fun because all the cards are basically copying, controlling stuff. So really, really good at multiplayer, right? You can keep, like, you never know what you get because it depends on what everyone else has. So it's a fun deck to use. So let's go over the cards. I have updated, every new set actually comes out with some kind of controller copy card. So I do end up updating this one a lot. Actually, this card is actually pretty useful to this deck. Sapphire Medallion, 2 mana artifact. Blue spells you play cost 1 less. I mean, just useful, right? Very useful for any spell in this deck because just everything costs 1 less. Very, very useful card to have in any blue deck, but really especially in this deck because there's a lot of cards that cost a lot of mana in this deck. Because I didn't care about mana cost, I just wanted to use cards that have control and copying abilities. So I did completely disregarded the mana cost in this deck. So this is an example, right? Very, very expensive card to use. 4 mana plus a double X in the casting cost. This is one of the most expensive cards to use in this deck. Double X and 4 blue, but gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. So the effect is very powerful. So if I pay 6 mana and get 1 creature and 1 planeswalker, if I pay 8 mana, I get 2 creatures and 2 planeswalkers. So yeah, this deck needs a lot of mana to use. So this is one of the most powerful cards in this deck and one of the most expensive. Stolen Identity. As a 6 mana, I can put a token onto the battlefield. It's a copy of a artifact or creature. Then it has Cipher. I can exile the spell encoded on a creature. Whenever that creature deals combat damage, then I can copy this card without paying the mana cost. Very interesting. So yeah, I haven't really used the Cipher effect much, but just the effect, that's why I put it in. I put a token, it's a copy of any artifact or creature. So if there's something related to copying or controlling, then I put it in this deck generally. So 6 mana, not the cheapest. Cryptoplasm, interesting, one of the cheaper cards in this deck, 3 mana. It's a 2/2. Every turn, I can have it become a copy of another creature. And if I do, it still keeps this ability. So yeah, it's another card I can copy other creatures. So have it in this deck. Thalicos Deceiver is an old card from Stronghold. You can tell it's obviously very different design. It's an old school design. 4 mana, 1/1. Shadow means it can't be blocked except by creatures with shadow, which not many creatures have shadow. Means basically it's unblockable. But when it's attacking and unblocked, so they very low chance of being blocked, right? I can sacrifice to gain control of a creature permanently. So basically it has to attack first, and then does damage. I sacrifice it, sack it, and I get a creature from the opponent. So yeah, another control card. Glasspool Mimic. It's a newer card. I can enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature I control, except it's this creature type. Okay, so basically 3 mana, I can have it, I can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature I control, and then this is also a land? Is that right? Oh man, I'm not quite sure with that. So this is also a land, maybe. Interesting, okay. It says you may have entered the battlefield as a copy of a creature, so it's like a land creature? Interesting. Never really seen that. Mercurial Pretender. I can enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature I control, and then I can also return to my hand for 4 mana. So yeah, key thing is this one, I don't like these creatures so much when it has to be a creature I control, because I might not always have a creature I control. It's better if it's any creature, like clone, right? But yeah, this one has to be a creature I control, but I have this extra ability, so I guess I can return to my hand and copy another thing. Desertion, it's a spell, and counter target spell, and if it's an artifact or creature spell, then I get it, basically. Put that card onto the battlefield. So yeah, if opponent plays a creature or an artifact, I counter it, and then it's mine. So yeah, again, control related. Wall Stolen Identity. So it's a copy of any creature except it's a wall. Yep. And I do tap the copied creature. It doesn't untap. Okay, so not only do I copy the creature, I tap that creature and it stays tapped. So I basically trap it. I trap a creature and then I copy it, except it's a wall. So yeah, interesting. Seer Vision's just another card to dig through my deck. Pretty good card to use. Fate Infatuation. 3 mana, I put a token. It's a mono blue, I don't worry too much about that. Put a token in the battlefield as a copy of a creature I control. If I do, scry 2, right? It's a scry 2. Just look at the top 2 cards of my deck. So another card that I can copy. Okay, this is a control card. So 7 mana, 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, I gain control of a permanent. So anything, a land, creature, enchantment, planeswalker, anything. And then at the end of the turn, if I control 3 or more permanents I don't own, I draw 3 cards. So that's very likely actually in this deck. If I control 3 or more things because I have so many control cards in this deck, right? It's very likely that I'll control something I don't own, and controlling 3 or more of them is not that uncommon. Then I draw 3 cards every turn if I have that condition. So, but 7 mana, so yeah, it takes a lot of mana, but very good effect. It's built-in, gain control of target permanent, anything on the battlefield permanently. So I think even when this dies, I still have the control of it. Okay, next we have Royal Elemental. So this one, 6 mana, 3/2 flying, so not very good stats, but landfall. Whenever I play a land, I gain control of a creature as long as I control it. So that's a very, very good effect. Very good ability as long as it survives. Every time I play a land, I get a creature. So yeah, powerful effect. Spark Double, 4 mana for you can enter a battlefield as a copy of creature. It's a clone or a planeswalker actually. You can copy planeswalkers too. That's nice. Except it enters an additional +1/+1 counter if it's a creature, and it enters an additional loyalty counter. Okay, and it isn't legendary if that permanent's legendary. So this is even better actually. So in copy creature or planeswalker, I get an additional counter if I do that, and it's not even I can copy legends too. So that's really cool. So it doesn't even adhere to the legend rule. So that's really cool. Good card. It's 4 mana. It's the same cost as clone too. So it's just better than clone. It's a better version of clone for the same mana cost. Legacy's Lure, old card from Tempest. 2 mana, enchantment, and every turn I get a counter on this, and then I can sacrifice this to permanently gain control of a creature with power equal to or less than the number of counters on this. So I can just keep waiting, like wait 3 turns, wait 4 turns, 5 turns, I can sack this, get a creature that's power is equal or less than that. So good to have early game. It's only 2 mana. All right, Mirror Maid. I can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or enchantment. Pretty simple and effective, and it's only 3 mana. So yeah, any artifact or enchantment, not just mine, any artifact or enchantment for 3 mana, and copy it. Oh, this is a powerful card, Bribery. Cheap card. It's probably why it hasn't been reprinted since 8th edition. But this is the original one from Arcadia Masks. 5 mana, I can search opponent's library for a creature card, put that card into play under my control. So I get any card in the opponent's library. So that's really powerful, right? I get any card, any creature card, I get any creature from an opponent's library, and they're mine. So very, very powerful. The Novel School of Water's Edge. It's just a blue that's better than an island because it doesn't come into play tapped. Just I can tap it right away, and then I can untap a legendary permanent. So it's almost just better than an island. This one, Mikokoro. It's interesting card. It's colorless, but I can tap 2 to play. Each player draws a card, so I can use this to. I guess it's good in multiplayer games because this deck actually takes a while to get going because so many expensive cards. I can just use 2 mana, and then everyone just draws a card from the top of their deck, and well, it helps me find my cards, and it makes the game a little bit faster. So it's good in multiplayer to have that card. And then Corrupted Conscience here. 5 mana, I control enchanted creature. It's another control card. And enchanted creature has infect, so it deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, and every time it damages players, it does poison counters. Remember that it only takes 10 poison counters to make a player lose the game. So this is very powerful. I get an opponent's creature, and not only do I get it, but it's a better ability because it deals damage with -1/-1, which can actually kill indestructible things, and I can kill an opponent if I do 10 damage. So yeah, and it doesn't matter how much life they have. They can have 100 life. If they have 10 poison counters, they're dead. Illusionary Gains is 5 mana. I control creature, same mana cost as Corrupted Conscience, but when it enters the battlefield, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, an opponent, so whenever they play a creature, I have to attach this. So this is not as good, I think. Like, it just controls whatever the latest creature the opponent plays, I guess. So not quite as good, but I have it because, well, I can't have any repeat cards, and I'm trying to find every card that has a control ability and put it in this deck. So Lithoform Engine, very interesting card. So 2 mana and copy an activated triggered ability, and I have 3 mana and copy instant or sorcery ability. They have 4 mana copy a permanent, which is essentially make a token copy. So this is the combination of what's that card that can copy triggered abilities? It's like a Strionic Resonator or something like that, and copy triggered abilities. So it's like that plus this one, which is a Panoptic Mirror, I think, that can copy sorceries or instants. And then it also had in it Isochron Scepter, and then it has a Soul Foundry ability. So it's a combination of a Strionic Resonator. This is a Panoptic Mirror, and then it has a Soul Foundry all on one card. So that's with the mana cost of really just a Soul Foundry. So this is like a really good card because it combines abilities of all those artifacts. So yeah, you can copy anything basically. You can copy an ability, you can copy instant or sorcery, and copy a permanent, which is any card, even a land. So actually, wait, it says permanent spell. Okay, so maybe not a land, but really any non-land. Then you can copy a planeswalker. Yeah, I can make a copy of a planeswalker, so that's cool. Okay, Vesuvian Shapeshifter, 5 mana, enters the battlefield. So it's basically what happens is this is morph 2. When I morph it or when I play this, it's a copy of a creature, and or if it's turns face up, you can turn if you do. Okay, so yeah, when I play this or when I morph it, it's a copy of a creature on the battlefield, and then each turn I can choose to flip it back down. So that means I can choose to flip it back down, then I can choose to copy another creature. So just nice versatile card. It's been out for a while, so it's obviously a play on Vesuvian Doppelganger, which is one of the early Magic cards. So very useful. And copy multiple creatures with that. Entrancing Melody, X mana cost, gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X. So pretty simple. It's like the lesser version of that mass manipulation. This is like the lesser version of that. Cheaper, of course. And permanently gain control of it. Yeah, it's just quick, easy, simple. And Quasi Duplicate. 3 mana, create a token that's a copy of creature I control, and then a Jumpstart. I can cast this card from my graveyard by discarding a card. Okay, so I can replay this by discarding a card. I can possibly play this twice and just 3 mana. Otherwise, just create a token of a creature I control. So it's like the other Cackling counterpart card I have in this deck does a similar thing. Gigantoplasm. 4 mana, enters the battlefield's copy, so it's a clone, except it has this ability, control. I can pay X to make this creature has base power toughness XX. So it's like a mirror entity type of effect. Yeah, I mean, it's better than clone, right? Because the same mana cost as clone, it does the same thing as clone, except it has an extra ability that I can pump it up, make it big or small as I want to. Sculpting Steel, very nice card. This is from Mirrodin, so a very old set. But 3 mana, and then it's a copy of any artifact in play. So any artifact on the battlefield, copy it for 3 mana. Very nice. Vizier Many Faces. So this is 4 mana. It's basically another clone, except if it was embalmed, it's a zombie. So I can embalm it, I guess. I still have to look up, actually, I forget what embalm does, but yeah, it's another type of clone thing. Yeah, I forgot, I had to look at what embalm does. It's a little extra twist. Basically all these like clone effects with extra twists. Clever Impersonator, another clone effect. It's enters battlefield as a copy. Now you realize why my deck is called, Control, and it's basically just full of copying and controlling effects. Enters the battlefield as a copy of any non-land permanent. So this is actually better than clone because I can copy non-creatures too. I can copy a planeswalker, I can copy artifact, I can copy an enchantment, so I can copy anything, not just creatures. So anything that's not a land. So it's a very much more useful than clone actually. This one, Clone Legion. For each creature a player controls, I get a copy of that creature. So yeah, if they have like 1,000,000 squirrels, I get 1,000,000 squirrels. That's why it's 9 mana. Impulse, this is a nice card. I wish they would reprint this card actually. I don't think it's been necessarily reprinted. But 2 mana, I dig 4 cards down and I get 1 of them. So good at finding the cards I need. Metamorphic Alteration, 2 mana. I get a creature and I choose a creature on the battlefield and the creature is a copy of the creature. So basically it's a clone for 2 mana. It's not as good as clone because it's enchantment, so it can be removed. Well, I wouldn't say creature removal is probably actually easier than enchantment removal. So yeah, I mean it's not necessarily worse. I mean it's the 2 mana. It's a 2 mana clone, so it might be actually better because it's so much cheaper. So yeah, that's actually really good. 2 mana and I clone a creature, really cheap. Blatant Thievery. So this is 7 mana. For each opponent, I gain a control of something they control. So anything, a permanent. So this is really good in multiplayer games. 6 players, I get something from each of them. So it can be anything: a land, planeswalker, creature, artifact, enchantment. So any permanent, go through every opponent. So this is really good in multiplayer games. So that's 7 mana from Onslaught too. Yeah, it's an old card. This is another old card from Mercadian Masks. Charisma, 3 mana. It's enchanted creature, so I enchant a creature, and then when it deals damage to a creature, I control that creature. And then as long as this remains in play, I guess when the creature dies and this enchantment dies, then they get it back. But otherwise, yeah, if I deal damage to a creature with this enchanted creature, then I gain control of it. Soul Ring, just all around useful card. 1 mana, tap, add 2 mana. You gotta have it on every deck. Follow Footsteps. 5 mana, enchant creature. Every turn I get a copy of enchanted creature. So yeah, this doesn't have to be my creature. I can enchant an opponent's creature, and every turn I get a copy of it. So this is a repeatable effect. Every turn I can get a copy of that creature. So that's awesome. Confiscate, pretty old card along these cards actually. 6 mana, just enchant anything, and I control anything. So pretty simple and powerful. Yeah, 6 mana, I control enchanted permanent. So anything on the battlefield, control for 6 mana. This is that card I was talking about, Cackling Counterpart. 3 mana, I get a token on the battlefield as a copy of a creature I control. So it's only creatures I control, but that's why it's only 3 mana. And I can flash back for 7. Body Double. This is a cool card actually. 5 mana, this is a copy of any creature in any graveyard. So yeah, any creature that's died already, I get a copy of. This one is a copy of it, so that's really cool actually. Pretty unique effect. This is a cool land I got from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Another card where I can search through my deck a little bit easier. I look at the top 3 cards, put them back, shuffle. Yeah, it's a good card to dig through the deck. Rite of Replications, pretty interesting. 4 mana, kicker 5. I get a token that's a copy of a creature, and then if it was kicked, so that'd be 9 mana. If I kicked it, then I get 5 of those tokens. So yeah, pretty expensive if you pay the kicker, but then you get 5 copies of a creature, so that's pretty powerful. Quicksilver Gungatron, 7 mana for 7/7. So yeah, it's a copy of any creature except it's a 7/7. So it's another variation on the clone thing, right? That's another variation. It's another cool land actually. Oh, Treachery. This is one of my favorites, and it's never been reprinted. It's from Urza's Destiny. 5 mana, you control enchanted creature, right? But you untap up to 5 lands, so it's basically free. So I play it, I untap 5 lands, I control creature, and I still have my 5 lands. So it's a free enchantment, and that's a lot of these free spells were really powerful back in the day. That's why they didn't really print too many of them or reprint any of them really. But yeah, you untap 5 lands, you get a creature, so it's a free enchant creature. I mean, you gain control of a creature for free basically, because you get all your mana back. Really good. We have Friction Metamorph, another cool card because it's one of these friction ones. So you can pay blue or you can pay 2 life. It's a clone, except you can clone an artifact or a creature. So yep, it's better than clone because it's more versatile and you can clone an artifact. Stunt Double, another clone variation. 4 mana, the difference is this one has flash, so you can play it on your opponent's turn. So it's a clone that can come in on your opponent's turn. You can play it on your opponent's turn, which is cool. Domestication 4 mana, you control a creature, and if its power is 4 or greater, then this dies. So you can only enchant really just small creatures, but that's fine because there's still a lot of creatures you can enchant with this. Not quite as good as some of the other cards in this deck though. Hypnotic Siren's pretty interesting. It's 1 mana for 1/1. But if you use this bestow effect, then so this is a creature you can play as a creature, but you want to play it as an enchantment. So you use a bestow effect, and then you control enchanted creature, and that enchanted creature gets +1/+1, has flying. So it's basically 7 mana for enchanted creature, and it's +1/+1 and has flying. So that's basically what it is. Evoke the Winds, the new one. 5 mana, I gain control of an artifact or a creature, and I untap it. So pretty simple to use. Yeah, any artifact creature for 5 mana. Spelljack. Oh, this is a long text. So basically what it is, 6 mana, I counter a spell, and then I can play that spell and put it under my control. So it's not just a creature, it's really anything. So if opponent played a sorcery or an instant, I counter it, and then I can use it against him. If they play creature, then it's mine. So it's basically any spell that they play, I can use it against them. So that's that for 6 mana. Fairy Artisans, 4 mana, 2/2. Flying, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, create a token as a copy of that creature. So yeah, play this, opponent plays a creature, then I get a copy of it. So I just copy any creature, and as long as this is on the battlefield, I copy any creature an opponent plays. So I get a copy of anything they play there, basically. Impulse Clutches. So 6 mana, I get anything. Actually, just confiscate. So 6 mana, control any permanent, except it's a legendary. That's the only difference. So it's not as good because if it's legendary, then it's actually, yeah. I mean, this is not as good. Yeah, because legendary, you have the legend rule now. So if they play another thing that's the same name, then this will die. So yeah, it's not quite as good as confiscate, but it's another alternative. Dream Leash, another confiscate type of card. So 5 mana, it's a little bit cheaper than confiscate, but you can only play it on a tapped permanent. So that's the drawback of that 1 mana cost less. Spirit Away, 7 mana. So yeah, you control a creature, it gets +2/+2 and has flying. So actually this is very similar to the Hypnotic Siren card, right? Yeah, Hypnotic Siren, 7 mana, +1/+1 flying. This is better because this is +2/+2 and has flying. So it's just +1/+1 difference. Same amount of mana. Vidalcan Shackles, this is a very cool card. 3 mana. I can choose not to untap it, but when I tap 2 mana, I can tap this and I gain control of a creature as long as the power is less than or equal to the number of islands I control, and as long as this remains tapped. So yeah, so if opponent plays a creature that's, say, like, you know, power of 4, then I need to have at least 4 islands. And then I would tap this, I gain control of it, and then say he plays another creature I want, I just untap it, and I just gain control of that other creature as long as its power is less than or equal to this one. So to the islands I control. So yeah, it's a nice repeatable effect, and it's harder to destroy because it's an artifact. So good card. I think this is actually from 5th Dawn, right? Yep. I don't think this has ever been reprinted. This is a good card. Telemann Performance. This one is 5 mana. Then the opponent basically just mills card from the top of their deck until they get a creature, and that creature is mine, basically. So yeah, just they go from the top of the deck, whatever creature they get from the top of the deck, there's some RNG involved in this, then it's mine. Just fine, because that adds to the fun of this deck. Volition Reigns, another confiscate, basically. The only difference is now if it's tapped, I untap it. So it's like the opposite of Dream Leash. So Dream Leash you can only play on a tapped permanent. This one is untap it when you play it on a permanent. Okay, Take Possession. 7 mana. So it's 1 mana, and so it's like another one of 7 mana confiscates. The difference is it has split second. So when I play this, you control a enchanted permanent. So it's a confiscate when I play it. Split second means that they can't do anything. They can't use any instance. They can't use any ability. So they can't counter this, basically. So I play this, they can't counter it. Whereas with all these other confiscate ones, they can just, you know, if they have the ability to sacrifice a creature, they can do that to prevent me from doing that. This one they can't. So this one is like, I'm getting you a creature, you can't do anything about it. So that's why it costs 1 mana more. Kami of the Crescent Moon, 2 mana. So this is every turn a player draws an extra card. So just a way to make the game a little bit faster. Everyone draws an extra card. Helps move the game along. Preordain, pretty much another filter card. Scry 2, draw a card. So yeah, it's another one to get to the cards I want. Mind Control is pretty simple as it gets. Actually, 5 mana, you control enchanted creature. So not as powerful as Confiscate because it's only on creatures. So that's why it's 1 mana less. Clone, this is the original clone. 4 mana, copy any creature. That's it. So it's not quite as good as some of the other ones we saw. Some of the other ones we have some variations. This is the original one, just copy any creature. So not quite as good, but it is the original. Phantasmal Image, now this one's really cool because it's 2 mana, so very cheap clone. The downside is when it comes the target of a spell ability, you have to sacrifice it. So that's why it's cheaper, it has this extra downside. But to me, the downside is not that bad because 2 mana to be a clone, I mean, that's half the mana cost of clones, so that's really good. Castle Vantress, so tapped until unless I control islands. So yeah, obviously a lot of islands in this deck, and then I can scry 2 for 4 mana, so just a nice extra island to have. Also, it's cool, it's a floating castle. Supplant Form, so this is 6 mana. Return a creature to the hand, and I get a token that's a copy of that. So it's kind of mean, right? It's like that creature goes back to their hand, they have to replay it, and then I get a copy. that's that creature, so it's kind of mean, but it's nice. It's an instant, so I can use it on their turn. Estra's Invocation, very interesting. 3 mana, I can enter the battlefield as a copy of an enchantment, except every turn I can remove this, and it comes back onto the battlefield. And return to the battlefield is, yeah, so basically I can, if I see an opponent's enchantment, actually it doesn't have to be an opponent's enchantment, it could be my enchantment, right? As a copy of, oh, it has to be my enchantment, actually it can't be an opponent's enchantment. Okay, so say I have this card, this is the same as Mind Control, this is the exact same card as Mind Control, right? 5 mana, you control enchanted creature. There is, honestly, this is just a rename, right? This is the exact same thing, you control enchanted, so it's the exact same thing as Mind Control, just a different name, Persuasion. So yeah, this enchantment, so say I want to copy this enchantment, I play Estra's Invocation, and then let's say I play another enchantment later on. Let's say I play this one, like Dictate of Crucifix. This is another one that's similar to that Kami guy. Every turn everyone draws another card, basically. It's the same as that, there's Flash. Say I want to copy this one next turn, I can just remove this from the battlefield, and then it comes back next turn, I'll copy this. I can choose to copy something different. So Estra's Invocation is interesting because it can only copy enchantments, so it's not as versatile as some of the other cards. I can copy both, but this one I can change it out. I can keep swapping it for another better enchantment I like. Okay, Sahili's Artistry is 6 mana. I can choose one or both. I can create a token that's a copy of an artifact, or I can create a token that's a copy of a creature. So yeah, if I have an artifact and a creature, I can create a token of both of them. I can copy both of them. So that's really cool. We're 6 mana. Cal Suppressor, 3 mana from Onslaught. Nice. So this is kind of similar to Vidalcan's Shackles, except the difference is I tap to gain control of a creature that isn't of a chosen type. So it comes into play, the opponent chooses the creature type, and then I can gain control of any creature that's not that type. So this is really good against decks that are not tribal, which is actually most decks. So yeah, as long as they're not playing a tribal deck, this is pretty good because I can gain control of most of the creatures. Okay, Tire Star, so 6 mana, 5 flying. When it dies, I gain control of a creature permanently. So it's a good effect to have. This is actually my commander in this deck, Sakashima the Imposter. It's a clone effect. Comes into play, I can clone any creature except it has 4 mana, return it to my hand. So that means I can return to my hand and then clone another thing if I want to. So it's also really useful for saving this card. So if my opponent wants to destroy it, I can just pay 4 mana, I return it to my hand, and it can't be destroyed or something, and then I play it again, and I copy another thing. So it's useful, good to have as a commander, because I can avoid the commander cost actually with that. I can, yeah, kind of side skirt it. Control Magic. Now this is the original control card. You can see how old this card is. This is from the early days of Magic. So you see like Persuasion and Mind Control, all these other cards, 5 mana. This is the original OG control card, except it's 4 mana. So this is actually better than those. So it's 1 mana less, and you use the same effect. You gain control of any creature. So it's better than Persuasion and Mind Control, and it's older. That's it. So yeah, guys, you guys know why this deck is called Blue Control now, because it literally is full of control and copy cards. So very fun deck to play in multiplayer. So yeah, it's just a fun deck to play because it changes every game. Whatever the opponent has, I'll control it. Whenever the opponent has, I'll copy it. So really every game is different, and that's so fun to play with this 100 card multiplayer control deck. So that's it, guys. That's my blue control deck. Thanks for watching. So I forgot about this card. This card is called Sour of Temptation. It's a 2/2, and when it comes into the battlefield, I gain control of a creature as long as this remains in play. So it's basically control magic on a creature. So yeah, of course I gotta have that in this deck too.